Hey everybody, thank you so much for listening to 2048 AM Voices in the Wood. It has been an absolute joy for both myself and the cast to see all of your reactions to the show so far. It has been an immense labor of love and passion making this series, and seeing everyone enjoy it has meant so much to us and to me personally. With that being said, I have two things for you. The first is a micro episode. It's more of a speech, really. Basically, in between episodes 4 and 5 of Voices in the Wood, something happens in the Sublime. And if you're caught up to Strangers in the Wood, you may have an inkling about what exactly that is, but if you're not, that's okay. This micro episode is to give you some in-world context as to what has happened so that episode 5 is just a little less confusing. But before we get to that episode, I have the second thing. And that is that I have something to say that is related to the episode, the finale, and the world of the Sublime as we continue to move forward. I, Kendrick Smith, and Tales Yet Told as a whole, unequivocally stand with Palestine in the face of genocide at the hands of Israel and its Western allies, including the United States. The Palestinian people have endured an amount of suffering that I can't even begin to imagine. And I firmly believe that it's our responsibility as fellow human beings to take action in the face of such evil. All of our struggles are inextricably linked, and none of us are truly free until we all are free. But words are not enough, because words do not equate to progress. So in the description of this and every episode of Voices in the Wood, you'll be able to find a link to the U.S. campaign for Palestinian rights. That website will help you find resources to learn more about what's happening in Gaza, how to connect with local organizers, or even how to organize movements within your own community. Additionally, you will find a link to the Big Bad Boycott website, which details the ongoing organizing of a boycott targeting Big Bad Con 2024, a TTRPG-focused convention that is guilty of censoring anti-Zionist messaging of its Jewish panelists. You can find a detailed recounting of the events that transpired, a list of demands from the TTRPG community to the convention organizers, and a form for you to sign on to the boycott and have your voice be heard. You will also find a link to SudanFunds.com, where you can find an updated list of crowdfunding campaigns for Sudanese individuals living in war zones and enduring yet another genocide. As I said before, all of our struggles are linked, and I implore you to go to these links, share them, learn from them, donate, call and email your representatives, and let your voice be heard. It is our responsibility for us to speak for those whose voices are being silenced. Now, what does that have to do with this episode, Strangers in the Wood, and the Sublime as a whole? Everything. The Sublime has always been a parody of America and the way it treats its most vulnerable citizens and the rest of the world. It has always been a work born of my own politics as a masked black, queer, and disabled person. As I process the harm it has done to me, the people around me, and the world as a whole. In the direction of Voices in the Wood, Strangers in the Wood, and every story in the Sublime has and will always be representative of that. With that being said, here are the following content warnings for this micro episode. Themes regarding political propaganda of an oppressive state, the weaponization of the term terrorist, grief, loss, and death. Discussions of a terrorist attack. Discussions of a quote-unquote terrorist attack. Allusions to the 9/11 attacks. Body horror, forced human transformation into animals, and children in dangerous situations. With that, I present to you 2048 AM, Voices in the Wood, episode 4.5, a message from the voice of the Sublime.
You're listening to a Tales Yet Told production. Viewer discretion is advised.
Good evening. You are listening to the voice of the Sublime, Harrison Hill. Today is with great sadness that I must report to you that earlier today, in the town of Oak Creek, our fellow citizens, our way of life, Our very freedom came under attack in an act of deliberate and deadly terrorism. The victims were on their way to work and school, or hoping to spend a beautiful day in the park. Retail workers, businessmen and women, students and children, moms and dads, friends and neighbors. Hundreds of lives were irrevocably changed and in many cases suddenly ended by an evil, transformative act that, well, frankly boggles the mind. It was a plan orchestrated by the anarchists, those monsters lurking at the edges of our society in the border cities, as they call them. The pictures of the burning remains of the first Sublime church, people being pulled from their cars by unknown assailants, people being changed. Those pictures are filled us not only with disbelief, but with a terrible sadness and a quiet, unyielding anger. These acts of mass transformation were intended to frighten us into chaos and retreat, but they have failed because our county is strong. Oak Creek was targeted for attack because it is the home of the memorial tree, a symbol of the pain and endurance of Sublime County in the aftermath of the 14-season war. And the first Sapling Church, which was ruthlessly attacked, represented a path forward for our cursed citizens, a chance for rehabilitation for those who had strayed from the stranger's path. For many in the Sublime, it represented hope, a light in the darkness. And now that hope, that light, is extinguished. But we, the citizens of Sublime County, remain stronger and more united than ever before. We responded with the best of Sublime County, with the daring of our rescue workers, with the caring from friends, families, and neighbors who came to give blood and help in any way they could. Today, the Sublime saw evil. An evil conjured in the minds of anarchists with their minds and bodies twisted by their own choices. An evil that took the lives of innocent civilians and bent their minds and bodies as well. And our reaction to that evil was to stand strong together. Immediately following the attack on Oak Creek, the stranger implemented our county's emergency response plans. Our emergency teams are diligently working in Oak Creek right now to help with the local rescue efforts in hopes of finding and securing survivors of the attack. Sublime County Sheriff's Department, led by Sheriff Edgar Moore, were able to apprehend dozens of these unidentified entities that cruelly and indiscriminately attacked and transformed men, women, and children. But who knows how many more are out there. Currently, the Sheriff's Department has released a statement saying that the primary suspects in the attack on Oak Creek are 2 children and a stoat, Dakota Wallace, Dorothy Reed, and Walter the Weasel. The search is underway for the perpetrators of these evil acts, and the stranger has directed the full resources of our intelligence and law enforcement communities to find those responsible and bring them to justice. They will make no distinction between the terrorists who committed these acts and those who harbor them. Before closing tonight, I want to take this moment to thank the Strangers Harbingers, who help hold this community together and remain the guiding forces in the Strangers' plan. And on behalf of Sublime County citizens, I thank the Harbingers who already have moved to offer their condolences and assistance. And in return, I would like to offer my condolences to them, for they too have suffered a great loss today, as Sister Helena May, the Sublime's healer, was tragically lost in the destruction of the first Sapling Church. Tonight I ask for your prayers for all those who grieve, for the children whose worlds have been shattered, for all whose sense of safety and security has been threatened, for their fear is justified. The enemy is still out there, and they can look like anyone, even those you love most. And they will use your love and your trust against you. That is how sick and twisted these anarchists are. I pray we will be comforted by a power greater than any of us, by the stranger. For this is a day when all Sublime Siders from every walk of life unite in our resolve for freedom and peace. The Sublime has stood down enemies before, and we will do so again. None of us will ever forget this day. Yet we go forward to defend peace and all that is good and just in our world. Thank you, good night, and may the stranger's ever watchful eye keep the Sublime safe.